Welcome once again, my brothers and sisters, to another Living Hope Today study. Here we find ourselves in 1 Samuel chapter 13. And today we see a contrast begin to develop between Jonathan, the son of Saul, and Saul, the new king. Saul is going to do something today that's going to change his life and the lives of those in generations to come. And he's doing it because he has fear, and his fear leads him to make his own choices based on his own wisdom and his own self-reliance, and it all takes him to disaster. Terrible. It's a great lesson for us to understand how we live our lives before God and what's required of us, and the danger of going outside of what God has instructed for us. Let's look at it. 1 Samuel 13, Saul was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned over Israel for 42 years. All right, so he's 72 years old when his reign ends. He's younger than that in this passage, though. Saul chose 3,000 men from Israel. 2,000 were with him at Michmash and in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan at Gibeah in Benjamin. The rest of the men he sent back to their homes. So the introduction to the story, Saul is mustering 3,000 guys. Why would he do that? Well, look at this. Jonathan attacked the Philistine outpost at Gibeah, and the Philistines heard about it. And then Saul had the trumpet blown throughout the land and said, "Let the Hebrews hear." So Jonathan is the one that initiates the attack. You know that throughout centuries, in fact, even today, Israel is almost constantly in battle with its neighbors based on the fact that its neighbors want it to be completely removed. Well, Israel's always been in a position to fight, to defend itself, to stay where it's at. In this chapter 13, Jonathan initiates the attack. It tells us the Philistines heard about it, but Jonathan believes. Jonathan understands. Remember, let me take you, let me put you forward for a chapter. We'll do this next time a little more thoroughly when we get to Jonathan's role in this battle. But here in 14:6, the next chapter, Jonathan said to his young armor bearer in verse 6, "Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few." Jonathan's heart is wholly dedicated to God. He's attacking. He's ready for victory, but not in his own strength. He's not relying on his own wisdom or power. He's relying on God to move forward. That'll become much more clear tomorrow. But here, as we look at this today, we find what happens as this battle is introduced. So all Israel heard the news. So Saul's mustering the whole country now. Saul has attacked the Philistine outpost. And now Israel has Israel has become a stench to the Philistines. And the people were summoned to join Saul at Gilgal. Okay, so the theme here is the Philistines are a lot bigger and more powerful than us, and why did we attack them? All right, the Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots and 6,000 charioteers and soldiers as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and camped at Michmash east of Beth Aven. So we kind of poke the bear here, right? Jonathan initiates this attack. The Philistines figure it out, and now they've mustered a vast army, a powerful army that outnumbers Israel at least 3-1 in terms of weaponry, 6,000 charioteers and 3,000 chariots, but outnumbers them incredibly in terms of manpower, soldiers. Big problems. Why did we poke the bear like that? Well, when the men of Israel saw that their situation was critical, okay, and that their army was hard-pressed, in other words, we're going to get wiped out, what do? Hey, let's hide, okay? Are we going to pray? Are we going to ask God for strength, wisdom, power, direction? No, we're going to hide. They hid in caves and thickets among the rocks, and in pits and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops with him were doing what? Preparing for battle? Prepared to defend the homeland? No, they're quaking in fear. They know they're going to die because the Philistines are so much more powerful than they are. That's the point. So just catch that the emotional toil of this force coming upon them is terrible. Well, Saul does what? He waits 7 days. This is the time set by Samuel. He's waiting for the sacrifice that Samuel has decreed, and Samuel doesn't show up. He doesn't come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So what's happening? We're gathering, we're waiting. We should consult God. How do we do that? Well, we're going to have this sacrifice once Samuel gets here, and God's going to help us understand what we need to do next. But where's Samuel? He's not here. Okay, so what should we do? Well, Saul is watching his army start to scatter. He's watching the Philistines roll in, at least the threat of them. He hasn't seen them actually yet. What does he do? He panics. What does he say? Well, gee, if we need to have a sacrificial event here to bring God's presence and direction into this deal, and if Samuel's not here, let me do it myself so we get this thing going, right? Don't scatter, don't panic, but Saul's fear leads him to self-reliance. And so in 9, he says, bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings. And Saul offered up the burnt offerings. This is a horrible misjudgment based on fear and based on impatience, based on self-reliance. Well, guess what? Just as he gets done doing that, here comes Samuel. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. The greeting isn't, hey, how you doing? The greeting is, what have you done? Asked Samuel. And Saul replied, well, when I saw that the men were scattering, and that you did not come at the set time, and that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, when I saw all this, I thought, well, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor, so I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering. Boy, that's just a lot of great, great human wisdom, but it's not godly wisdom. Gee, I need to ask God what to do now that I'm knee-deep in all this. Well, God's given me a formula for what I need to do and how I need to do it. But I'm not going to wait for that. I'm not going to wait for Samuel. Samuel says, what? He says, look, you acted foolishly. You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, here's the punchline, listen to this. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. If you had obeyed him, if you had trusted him instead of reacting to your own fear. You remember back in verse 8 of chapter 10, right? Samuel tells him, go down ahead of me to Gilgal. I will surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, but you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what you are to do. Saul has been absolutely instructed by Samuel about what God wants, but Saul goes out of bounds. And that the end of 13, if you had done what God told you to do, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. Samuel's about to predict, or at least proclaim, that Saul's reign is over. Why is it over? Because he was absolutely instructed in what he should do, and he decided to take things into his own hands and do whatever he thought best. He has reasons, but just because you have reasons for your disobedience doesn't negate the fact that you're disobeying. And so what happens next? but now your kingdom will not endure. Look at that. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him leader of his people. Why? Because you have not kept the Lord's command. Imagine Saul hearing these words. Hey, guess what? The monarchy with you as the king, in God's eyes, has ended. He's going to continue the monarchy, but he has found a man that will serve him from the heart, do whatever he says, walk with him day in and day out. And you are not that guy. Why not? Because we told you exactly what the Lord wanted you to do, and you went out and did whatever you thought was best. You didn't wait. You didn't obey. Wow, what a severe mistake and a severe penalty. So the story goes forward. Then Samuel left Gilgal and went up to Gibeah in Benjamin, and Saul counted the men who were there, who were with him. They numbered about 600. Again, we're talking about overwhelmingly. They're going to get creamed by the Philistines because the numbers are so great. Saul and his son Jonathan and the men with them were staying at Gibeah in Benjamin, while the Philistines camped at Michmash. Just to give you an inkling of what that is, if you see on the map here, here's Jerusalem way down here. Here's Gibeah where Saul is hanging out. Here's Michmash where the Philistines are waiting to attack, just to give you some idea. All right, what do we know? Well, raiding parties went out from the Philistine camp in 3 detachments. One turned toward Ophrah in the vicinity of Shual, and another toward Beth Horon, and the third toward the borderland overlooking the valley of Zeboim, facing the desert. And here is an incredible statement. Not a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, because the Philistines had said, otherwise the Hebrews will make swords or spears. Oh, okay, so we're not going to let any blacksmith work with the Hebrews because they'll make weaponry with it. So we'll control all the blacksmiths. I mean, just look at how weak Israel is portrayed as these things are laid out for us. They don't have enough guys. By the way, they haven't consulted God. Saul has blown that to bits. And now they don't have any weaponry. Oh, wow, okay, what do you do if you don't have any weaponry? Well, so all Israel went down to the Philistines. These are the enemy camps, right? But let's go down there to have their plowshares, mattocks, axes, and sickles sharpened. Oh, hey, we're going to go down to our enemies and see if they'll help us prepare whatever kind of weaponry we can muster up, because we don't have any swords. We don't have any shields. The price was 2/3 of a shekel for sharpening plowshares and mattocks, and 1/3 of a shekel for sharpening forks and axes and for repointing goads. So now Israel is paying their enemies to sharpen whatever farm equipment they have around to help them fight this overwhelming force. So on the day of the battle, not a soldier with Saul and Jonathan had a sword or spear in his hand. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had them. This is obviously going to lead to total disaster, right? Now a detachment of Philistines had gone out. Now an detachment of Philistines had gone out to the pass at Michmash. Now, that's the end of chapter 13. We're going to pick up the battle here. What do we learn today? Don't go outside of what God says. When he tells us what he wants us to do, to violate those things leads to potential generational disaster. Saul's line is not going to be the kingship forevermore. God would have done it, but Saul isn't obeying God from the heart. He's obeying God from his own wisdom. He's not really trusting God. Okay, we need to learn that. And as we see these overwhelming army odds against Israel, as we move into chapter 14, we'll see what God does to bring victory to his people. God bless you, church. Serve him well today.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus. But do you know who he is? He's the image of the invisible God, and he's the brightness of his glory, the first, the last, the future, the past. He is God.